Welcome to Why Ever Not So, starring Fluffy the Bear, Foxy the Fox, and introducing Squee the Otter.
I also appear in the... If you accept free speech as an inalienable right, then sooner or later you're going to run up against the fact that what free speech is and what you thought free speech was are not exactly the same thing. See, there are always going to be people out there who you disagree with, and they deserve free speech just as much as you do. There are people out there who are wrong, they're objectively, factually incorrect, and they still deserve free speech just as much as you do, and there are people so hateful and vile and ignorant that their very existence feels like a drain on the world, and you know what, it probably is. But they, too, deserve the right to free speech. So when you say that free speech should be available to everybody, you end up having to defend things that are pretty much totally indefensible. You end up having to stand up for the rights of the KKK and the Westboro Baptist Church and the North American Man-Boy Love Association. People who you may find repulsive, even people who hate you for what you believe in, because for all you know, you could be wrong. You could be just as wrong as they are. It's a thankless, tiresome, difficult job to accept universal free speech. But what is the other option? Censorship. Censorship is the suppression of certain kinds of speech. It's the excision of things that are at odds with the prevailing moral opinion of the governing body. And it's often carried out under the guise of protecting the things that we hold most dear. Children, in particular, are used as justification for all kinds of censorship, some more justifiable, such as banning child pornography, and some less justifiable, like taking swear words off the TV and radio. But the problem with censorship is that because it's carried out by a governing body, it may not have any restrictions on it, and an unrestricted censorship is an extremely powerful weapon because information is an extremely powerful tool. The Chinese search engine Baidu removes search results that are politically sensitive, for instance, and in Romania, under Ceausescu, the weather was misreported so that workers were not allowed to take breaks, even if it were too hot or too cold to work safely. So obviously, even if you live in a country that recognizes the universal right to free speech, you will encounter some censorship. We're uncomfortable with accepting principles wholesale, even if those principles are undeniably good. When you say you believe in universal free speech, you pretty much have to accept everything that comes with that, whether you like it or not, and that's a difficult proposition. Every time you follow a single principle to its inevitable conclusion, then you end up advocating things that you never thought in a million years that you would end up advocating. For example, if you think that our global population is a problem, then you might be considering various means of population control. Theoretically feasible, but practically impossible solutions that often come up are universal contraception, or the less attractive equivalent, forced sterilization. But if you look at the reasons for our population growth, you see that, yes, hygiene and medicine and decreased infant mortality rates are all very important factors, but the overwhelming cause of our population growth is the massive growth of our ability to produce food. People are quite literally made of food. A male impregnates a female, she takes in matter to grow an organ, which then falls off and consumes matter in order to grow larger and continue existing. About 10,000 years ago, agriculture started to take over as the dominant means of food production. At that point, global human population, over the millions of years of human history, had only risen to around 10 million. And since then, it's exploded to over 7 billion, exponentially. That's a ridiculous increase of over 70,000%. It may be counterintuitive, then, to realize that many people around the world are starving, but we still produce more food every year. And in fact, we produce so much food that we could give every person on the planet 2,700 food calories a day, even accounting for the food that we throw away in order to artificially increase food prices. So if you want to cap population growth in a surefire way that is based on sound ecological principles, then you only have to produce as much food each year as you did the previous year. People will starve and you will not be able to feed them. This sounds horrifically inhumane, but is it? Starvation rates change pretty slowly from year to year, so by capping the population you ensure that at most about the same number of people will die of starvation this year as last year, whereas if you allow the population to grow as we do now, then a greater number of people will starve every year. Clearly that argument is flawed because it leads to a choice between the lesser of two evils, so maybe, just maybe, working from inalienable principles isn't the best way to solve a problem. Maybe it's more subtle than that, and free speech shouldn't be universal, and censorship can be a good thing. But what do you think? Thank you for watching, I'm really glad to be back. Please leave a comment for me, I read every one. Like or dislike because it helps me know what to do better next time. Favorite if you really like it, and share if you wanna. I'm Why Ever Not So, have an interesting whatever.